Well, good afternoon and welcome to What is a Recreational Vessel webinar. This is of course in regard to Longshore and the determination of what is a recreational vessel in the eyes of Longshore. And it's very different to what we might expect. Longshore was originally written and put into force in 1927 as the Longshore and Harbour Workers Compensation Act, or LHWCA. It was amended in 1972 to broaden to a lot of new categories, and this is the first time that people outside of the traditional longshoremen were covered under the Longshore Act. It was amended again in 1984, and then, probably most importantly for this webinar, in 2009, there was a small amendment, which we'll talk about in just a moment, as part of the ARA, the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, put in place in 2009. Then in 2012, there were the regulations that were published by the Department of Labour to interpret those changes as part of ARA in 2009. And really those regulations drive where we are today. Before we get into the boat repair and boat service, which is really where the change occurred, it's worth looking back at the 1984 version of the Act, which is still current today, for the exclusions derived from marina employees. And what it says is individuals employed by a marina, and there really should be a word in here for directly by a marina. This doesn't cover the subcontractors, they come in the repair and maintenance exclusions possibly. It really is just for those individuals employed directly by a marina, provided they are not engaged in construction, replacement or expansion of that marina except for routine maintenance. So what they're saying first is that if we construct, replace or expand the marina, we are a longshoreman. If we work directly for a marina and we don't do that construction, replacement or expansion, we're exempt from longshore. But the first question here is, what's a marina? Just because we have the word marina in the name of the employer doesn't make it a marina. The best definition we've been able to come up with the Department of Labour is an operation gets its income predominantly from the storage of recreational boats. Now, can you have a commercial boat in there? Yes. Can you do incidental repair and sales and things like that? Yes. But the predominance of your income must come from the storage of recreational boats. That could be in a water, it could be on buoys, it could be in rack storage, it could be on land. Doesn't really matter how the vessels are stored. It's just that that's the predominance of your operation. If it's not coming from storage, then you move into this boat repair, boat service category, which is where we're going to spend the majority of our time today. So here's how the definition of employee reads since the 2009 changes. This is just for the repair or service. So individuals employed to build or any recreational vessel under 65 foot in length, or individuals employed to repair any recreational vessel or dismantle any part of the recreational vessel in connection with the repair of such vessel. Now what this is telling you is that definition of the recreational vessel becomes critical. Let's look at this in a different way. As you see on the left, I've got recreational vessels under 65 foot, recreational vessels over 65 foot, and commercial vessels. Today, and really since 1984, if you do any work on a recreational vessel under 65 foot, it's going to be state act workers' compensation. If you do any work on a commercial vessel of any type, it's going to be longshore. But it's that recreational flip where building the recreational vessel is longshore if it's over 65 foot, but repair and service, my box highlighted in yellow in the slide, is now flipped to be state workers' comp. And that's the only one that changed in these 2009 amendments to the Act. Everything else has stayed the same. when you're looking at a manufacturer, the manufacturer gets to use their test to find out whether it's recreational. This is not true when we get to the service part, but certainly from the manufacturer's part. If the manufacturer is selling the vessel with the intention of it being used privately as a recreational vessel, then that's the rule that applies, and that's nice and simple and easy to apply. If the manufacturer has on its website, look, we're the best boat for towing other vessels, repair towing, emergency towing type thing, then that vessel's probably not intended to be used for recreational activities exclusively. So what is a recreational vessel? Well, the Coast Guard definition says a recreational vessel means a vessel being manufactured or operated primarily for the pleasure, or leased, rented, or chartered to another for the latter's pleasure. And I like that definition. It's a very strong definition and it makes it very simple. But unfortunately, there's some caveats that were brought in by these 2012 regulations. It's not a recreational vessel if it fits one of these 5 types of definition established by the Coast Guard: a passenger vessel, a small passenger vessel, an uninspected passenger vessel, or a vessel routinely engaged in commercial service, or a vessel routinely carries passengers for hire. I don't think any of us would think that D or E is a problem. Commercial service or carrying passengers for hire is a ferry boat. So both of those really don't give us any concern when we look at the type of vessel. But these first 3, passenger vessel, small passenger vessel, and uninspected passenger vessel, give us some real heartaches when we're trying to look at a vessel and decide, is it a longshore vessel or not? Don't worry too much about the detail in the 4 columns on the left, because they're all combined together in the column on the right, and this really defines what a commercial vessel is or what a longshore vessel is in the eyes of Longshore. If it carries passengers and has at least one passenger for hire on there, is paying a fee, it's going to be a longshore vessel. If it's a skippered charter, comes with a captain, it's going to be a longshore vessel. If it's a bareboat charter, think of this like a self-drive, like a Hertz or an Avis type of type of vehicle, then it's longshore, considered longshore only if it's over 12 passengers. Any submersibles which have at least one passenger for hire are going to be commercial and therefore longshore. And all ferries, even if they're free, are going to be considered longshore. Now, there is a little caveat in here. This is for a state, a political subdivision, who's using a recreational type of vessel for their own use. It needs to look like a recreational vessel. It's not military, commercial in nature. But here you can see a sheriff's department using a sport fishing boat, fairly common type of recreational boat. And weirdly, the regulation carves those out and considers the service and repair of those State Act. So let's look at this in a little more detail. If you repair or service any of these vessels, you're going to be a longshoreman. All ferries and skippered charter boats, all passenger vessels and submersibles but at least one passenger for hire, a bareboat charter vessel, in other words without a captain, if you have more than 12 person capacity, and then anything for commercial use or military use. I think those last 2 are fairly easy to appreciate, but maybe some of the first items are a little more complicated. What's excluded by Longshore and therefore covered by State Act? A bareboat charter under 12 passengers. Here's my little pedalo boat. 2 passengers, clearly bareboat, doesn't come with its own captain. A State Act repair service of that vessel is covered by the State Act. Passenger vessels and submersibles with no passenger hires but not ferries. If it's a ferry, you don't even have the requirement for a payment. And then anything that's used exclusively for private. Then that odd little carve out for the federal, state, or local government vessels, but they have to look like a recreational vessel. No good if it's a tugboat and used by the federal, state, or local government. So in reality, what's a recreational vessel? If you take that definition we started with, being manufactured or operated primarily for leased, rented or chartered to another for the latter's pleasure, but only if it's bareboat or under 12 passengers. So any skipper charter is going to be considered commercial. Here's the longshore vessels you'll see, military vessels. A mega yacht, typically a lot of these are chartered. If it's chartered, it's going to come with a captain and probably crew as well. So that makes those longshore vessels for repair service. Clearly a ferry boat, and then a commercial cargo boat. Here's probably the toughest one, and you can't really see it in the video here, but there's a title on this. She's called Time Out. She's a six-pack fishing charter boat. Comes with a captain, often a deckhand as well, and you take up to 6 passengers out there. That, in the eyes of Longshore since 2012, is a commercial vessel, and therefore the people that's repairing or servicing it are considered longshore. The difficult part of that is sitting right next to it is another almost identical vessel that's just used for private use, and that's a state act vessel because there's no commercial, no charter in there. That makes that line extremely difficult to tell, particularly when you're just walking down the dock and going on to repair one and then going on to the other. 1 minute you're in longshore, the next minute you're back in the state act. No longshore vessel is a bareboat charter. This is a sailboat that's chartered, has less than 12 passengers. Again, our sheriff's boat here, our municipal boat, again, it needs to look like a recreational vessel. And then, of course, my personal boat. That's actually called a hot tug. Believe it or not, it's a floating jacuzzi type of vessel, and it's heated by wood. It's a little wood stove to keep the water hot in there. Regulations 2012 says manufacturers and builders under 25 foot excluded if the recreational use is intended for the vessel. Repair service of recreational vessels of any size is excluded if it's private pleasure use only, bareboat charter under 12 passengers, or government vessels that look like recreational vessels. Now here's the part to be really cautious about. All those exclusions go away if you don't have coverage under state workers' comp. The feds don't leave people uncovered. And if there's no state workers' comp policy in force, you can be working on a 10-foot recreational boat and still be a longshoreman. Here in Florida, we require workers' comp for businesses with more than 3 employees. That doesn't apply in longshore. 1 employee gets you there, and gets you there very quickly. I want to go back just and show you this chart again, because this really shows you the change that happened in 2012 under the regulations and originally came out of the 29 change in the Act. It's that one yellow box, the repair and service of the vessel over 65 foot. And then, of course, what is a recreational vessel and all those definitions that we've looked at. I'm going to return you to the studio now. I'm ready for your questions.